How's everybody doing today? I wanted to thank everybody for all the comments you left on the last video I made about my truck. I went and picked up the rest of my tools from my buddy Noe's house because we don't have very many tools to use around here, and so I went and got all the rest of my tools. I did get them all back, minus a couple of sockets that were snap-on swivel sockets that goes on, and they're $23 a piece to sometimes $30 a piece, and I came with a set of 8, and I've collected those through the years one at a time. Ended up getting a whole set just by finding one little socket and then go turn it in and get another one, and I had a complete set, and now it's gone, man. I only have like 4 sockets out of the set, and it came with a set of 8 or 9, and I only got 4 on there, maybe 5. But that just goes to show, man, if you leave your tools with somebody else, only you're to blame. You can't blame the other person. It's your fault. It's your own self. It's my fault. But anyway, back to the radiator and situation thing. I'm just gonna wait till my wife gets off so we can tackle that. She's gonna be turning the wrenches and stuff. I'm gonna be running the camera. I might even get my son in there. I don't know how, either or. I don't care. But it's not a hard project for me. I just wanted to figure out which way I wanted to go with it, and Trump supporter or somebody said, it's just lack of funds. That's all it is. I can figure it out if I had, funds. But I think I got everything fine, man. I don't need no one buying me a radiator or special fit. And I just don't. That's just me, man. I always I help people out when I can, but I don't feel comfortable if I can make it on my own, and I got some fun, and if I have what it takes to, I can just put something together and make it work, then I'm fine with that. And so I'm going to go ahead and probably, I haven't made up my mind yet. I would like to probably just get an electric fan for that radiator and leave the electric fan set up on it, because I really like the electric fan setup, because when I had that flex fan on there, I noticed that it would wear out belts. The belts would wear out a lot quicker, and I'd have to go buy other belts because it would just wear them out with that big flex fan that's on there with all them blades. I put it on there, and it makes that whistling noise or whatever, but it would wear out the belts a lot quicker. This belt's been on there for a long time now, and it still looks like brand new. Don't got no wear on it. And I hate throwing belts on them V-belts, man. They're notorious for wearing out and throwing a belt. You keep a pair of pantyhose in the glove box in case you need to make you a makeshift belt to get home. And it makes it easier if that ever happens, then I don't have to worry about pulling a fan. I just have to worry about turning that water pump and the alternator. That's it. That's not much stress on it. So I think I'm going to try to get an electric fan, maybe from a junkyard or something. Go find me one that'll fit on it, and I'm smart enough to make brackets and keep it away from the radiator, and make, because I made that other one work. I stuck a Nissan fan kit, dual fans, on a Chevy, and I just went around to the junkyard and measured them until I found one that would bolt on there with bushings, and it works, man. It works great. The reason why the radiator has got a hole in it is because before I even put the electric fan on there, the bushings on the bottom of that radiator wore out, and it started rubbing on the bottom of the tank, and it would just, because the bushings wasn't on there, it rubbed it, and it rubbed a hole in it. So I had to pinch that vein off going across the bottom. I had to pinch it off, and I might just I don't know if I solder it, if it's gonna solder or not, because it looked like it was pretty corroded. Those fins look like they're pretty gone on there. It's not something that I noticed that. I thought about soldering it up, but it just looks like it's corroded, because I had to keep pinching and pinching and pinching, and it was just deteriorating. When I'd stick the needle nose in there to pinch that vein shut, the vein would just crumble, and I had to keep following it back until I got it pinched, So anyway, and all that said, I've been tinkering around with my stereo system today, through my life, I've always took things apart whenever I was a kid. My mama used to get mad at me for taking apart my Christmas presents and my toys, because I wanted to take them apart and see how they worked. And I always, through my whole life, I've always tinkered around with electronic equipment, burn up a lot of stereos. I can't tell you how many car stereos, home stereos that I've burnt out through the years. But I did know that when I burnt something out, I wanted to know why I burned it out and why it happened. And so I would go to the library and rent books about electronics or about sound or about just anything. I've always had a field piece. I've always owned a field piece to where I can measure resistance or continuity or any of that. Field piece, if y'all aren't familiar with what that is, somebody send me a message. Yeah, somebody said they just they seen the video I posted about my water pump from it's a YouTuber viewer. But anyway, I've always had a field piece, and I always could check resistance. You know, it's just one of the things. I don't know technical terms about nothing. All I know is how to do it, because either somebody showed me how and I asked them questions at Radio Shack and they showed me how to do it. So what I did now is I have a DeWalt radio that's a construction site radio. It doesn't have any external speaker hookups to it. It doesn't have any auxiliary. It does have an auxiliary for a phone, but it doesn't have any line feed output in the back of it. And I do know that if you take speaker feed and go try to plug it into a line feed auxiliary in on another stereo, it will fry the stereo. Like right now, that's on auxiliary. And if I was just going to take regular speaker feed wire from here and plug it into the back of that auxiliary jack, it would fry that radio. It would burn it up to where it wouldn't work no more, and probably both of them. So I've learned through the years by just tinkering and soldering with stuff that it is possible to take speaker feed and turn it into line feed, auxiliary feed. You know what I'm talking about? Auxiliary out feed. You can take speaker out feed and turn in the speaker output where you hook external speakers up. You can take and hook that to auxiliary input on another stereo, but you have to have that box that you buy up there at the. They sell it at electronic places. They sell it at home stereo places. They sell it at auto parts places. Anything to do with car stereo places, they sell it, and they're about $20 or $30. And you hook up your speaker wires to it, and it turns it into line feed. Well, I don't have nothing for line feed here, and I got a soldering gun out, and I plugged in my soldering gun, and I took apart this egg. This egg you could plug auxiliary in, and it has a headphone. This thing has a headphone jack on it. It has an auxiliary line out on it. It has auxiliary in and a line out feed on it. It also so in other words, I took the parts out of this and turned my speaker feed, which would be, you know, the speakers on this. It's just, I robbed parts from this. In other words, I took my soldering gun out and I took apart the resistors and everything in there that turn it into regular speaker wire, regular volume out. You know, regular speaker wires, you know, the output of speakers, you hook into a speaker. Like I said, if you're following me here, you just can't go hooking in that into an auxiliary jack in the back of another stereo, because it'll fry it. So you have to have the resistors and everything, and you got to know what you're looking for when you take apart another electronic piece of equipment. You got to know what you're looking at and what you're looking for, and rob the parts out of it and to use them. That's what I did. I robbed the parts out of this, and I installed those parts in my DeWalt radio. So now my DeWalt radio has line out. In other words,
auxiliary out, and then that stereo has auxiliary in. Well, my DeWalt radio is Bluetooth, and I don't want to try to mess with that television that costs me a lot of money. My wife won't let me mess with that television or try to take it apart because I don't know nothing about flat screen televisions. It does not have a auxiliary input in it. It might. I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to chance it. So I use the Bluetooth. I can Bluetooth this DeWalt radio to the TV, and then I wanted some surround sound effect, and that's why I linked these two together, because you can turn.
Because we're here to help you become your healthiest self. It's why we offer health tips for your body and your brain. Yeah, your brain. Today is
it makes it kind of like a surround sound effect where there's an echo there. And that stereo also has a place for surround sound speakers to be hooked up to it. So I hooked my DeWalt to that because that does not have a Bluetooth. And this has Bluetooth. But it didn't have no auxiliary out hookups to it. So I took a soldering gun and robbed the parts out of this and put it in my DeWalt radio, and then made it to where I got an auxiliary out, and this is the auxiliary jacks. I got a little fancy box that transfers different kinds of jacks. I hooked that box up to it, and now I got kind of like an echo effect. Okay, I know this is a long story, but so now I want bass. So I got another radio over here. It's a Sony home stereo system. It pumps out about 1,000 watts, and then I got that Phantom 15-inch woofer over there. It's a 2,500 watt speaker, and this is like 1,000 watt output subwoofer hookup on the back of this stereo. So I'm going to run the line feed out of the back of my DeWalt radio to the auxiliary in on that, and then that'll give me my bass. And I'll tell you another little story of another invention I had. Whenever my daughter was little, I used to hate it because we would always have to be quiet when she would go to bed. And if anybody made any loud noises or opened the door, shut the door, slammed the door, or dropped anything, any kind of little noise at all, she'd start waking up and crying. And so when it come time for, she grew up to be about 5 years old, and then I had my son. And I told my wife I don't want to start playing this quiet game again. So I took a 15-inch woofer and I strapped it to the bottom of the mattress. You know the springs in the bottom of my baby crib? I zip tied the speaker to the bottom of the baby crib and put an inline volume control on it and hooked it to the stereo in the house. And when we got ready to watch television or anything, or loud music in the house, I love music, I would just turn the volume down on that woofer, and the vibrations in his crib would put him to sleep. He actually liked it a lot. He actually, if you didn't have the stereo speaker on in there, he wouldn't fall asleep unless you had it on. And I know y'all think I'm crazy for that, but I didn't. If you get a child used to quietness all the time, shh, 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 and then somebody makes a noise, that kid will wake up in a minute. But if you always have something just boom, 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 boom in the crib, he wouldn't wake up, man, and it worked. So through the years, that's what I've always did. I've always torn apart my toys, and I've always created things and invented things, just like the Limster cave in there. I created a canopy out of speakers and another headboard off of another bed, and stacked them on top of each other and screwed them together and made it look nice, and took 2x4s and took couch cushions, old couch cushions, and cut them up and made and stapled foam around 2x4s, and then took some purple vinyl, because that's my wife's favorite color, and stretched the vinyl over the 2x4s, and I made that for the top of the railings to go all the way around. And then I went and bought a brand new mattress, black, and put a kind of like a canopy thing in the middle and just took a little string and put a little hook in the top of the into the ceiling and tied it around the sheet and made me a canopy that would draw up. My next thing to do in there is I'm wanting to find some small LED lights. I got some LED lights downstairs that came out of a sign. They're 12 volts, and I'm thinking about making stars on top of the canopy. You know, put them on the other side of the, because they don't get hot. LED lights don't get hot. And I'm thinking about making stars or something in there. I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out. That's a whole other ball game in there. But now I got this this surround sound system, and what started all this morning was just watching Ghostbusters with my son, and it didn't sound like the Ghostbusters that I grew up with. I seen it in the movie theater, and it just wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same. I like to feel the rumble, so I'm going to end up taking that speaker there, that 15-inch woofer there, and I'm going to put it inside the couch. I'm going to put it probably underneath and strap it to the springs underneath of the couch somehow to where it ain't gonna hurt the speaker, and that way whenever I turn this one on, I can adjust the volume on this and turn my bass up and down, and it'll give, you can feel the couch rumble, you know, because I hooked it up a while ago and turned it all on, and I had all this stuff hooked up, and the TV, Bluetooth, and it sounded good. I had a good echo effect. It sounded like I was in the movie instead of watching the TV. I was in the TV. It felt, that's what I like. And now the speaker, it was sitting over here by my feet. I had it turned up, and when a loud thunder or a noise would come on the television in the movie, or a, you know, you feel the vibrations, or you hear a crackling or sound or something, you hear it in them little bitty, you hear it in these echoing. And this is where the voice comes from. This is where the echo effect comes from, because it's a surround sound system. So I created me a little system here just by making do with what I have, and that's all I've ever did, was make do with what I've had and make something work. And yeah, sometimes you make mistakes and have to back up, and sometimes you mess things up, and that's why I was asking a lot of things and explaining the situation on that C10 truck out there, because I don't want to turn it into a redneck jerry-rigged truck. I want to try to keep it within reason, doing it right. Somebody had mentioned the fact that oh, your top hose is kinked. Well, the reason why that top hose is kinked is because I busted a radiator. I busted a heater hose that went to the heater, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and so I just took the radiator hose and looped it to where it just the heater core is a brand new heater core in the truck, but I need another heater hose, and it's middle of summer right now, and I don't need a heater, so I cut it off and I looped it back around to the water pump. That way it just don't, and I really don't prefer the heater core to be hooked up at summertime in there, because it makes it hot in that cab. Even though there ain't a fan blowing across them that heater core in there, it makes it hot in there. But anyway, I'm going to get off here and let y'all go, and I'm going to fine-tune this thing and put my speakers and place my speakers on the walls now, and run my wire and hide my wire and do it right, because my wife don't mind me creating stuff like this. She just doesn't want it to trip over wires, and she wants it to be decent to where she can operate it. She says, I don't mind you creating things, you just got to teach me how to adjust them to where it sounds good when you're here. And I don't think she's going to have that problem, because I would make something in the past and go to work, and she never could figure out how to turn the television on and listen to the sound, because I'd always had it ran through this stereo and over here in this speakers and all this other. She's always gotten upset with me a little bit because I was the only one that know how to operate the equipment, because I created the equipment that whatever system that I created, she would know how to operate it and turn it on or punch it. She said she would get so frustrated and be so mad at me, and she would scream at me when I got home, go in there and turn the volume on so I can watch the television. I can't even get a picture and all this other, because all you got to do is go here, push this button, go over here to the VCR and turn that on, and then go down here to the stereo and flick that on and and then adjust the volume on it, and, you know, all this other. I've always did that. I've always hooked up to my TVs to my stereos and created my own surround sound system. Burnt some up in the past, like I said, but I learned from my mistakes and went and got a book or went and asked somebody some questions, and as well as having a testing device to where you can test it, you know what I'm saying? So that makes it the important part. When you got a field piece and you can test, when you can test the output of something and how many
how many volts it is, or how many, the polarity in it, or the resistance on it, or continuity, or checking capacitors out, stuff like that. That's how I had to learn a lot about electronic equipment just through the years, just to satisfy my own needs and my own self. I never went to school for it. I've always been self-taught on a lot of things. And yeah, it can be very expensive, but I've always gotten things that just on the side of the road just broke down, and took them apart and put them in like televisions off the side of the road and took them apart. Washers and dryers, man, I can't tell you how many washers and dryers I've pulled off the side of the road and somebody's thrown away. I haven't bought a washer and dryer in years. I've always went out and pulled something off the side of the road, figured out what was wrong with it, went and got the part, put it in there, fixed it, and then used it. I mean, one time I even had, I didn't have a timer for my dryer. So I took an air conditioner contacts that closes and opens, that goes on the outside condenser. You know, your air conditioner unit's got contacts that suck in. And what makes those contacts open and close is a 24 volt wiring system. It runs on 24 volts. The magnetic coils that are in that contacts run off 24 volts. Well, I hooked the contacts, I hooked up the heating elements direct and the motor direct, and I turned, and I didn't have no knob. It's got a start button that was all that crap. I just got rid of all the controls on the dash, and then I took apart a microwave and the keypad on the microwave. You know how you punch buttons on the keypad on the microwave and the timer, and when you push start, all I had to do was find out what two wires was making a connection and breaking a connection. I took the microwave apart, and I took the keypad on the microwave and stuck it on a dryer, and made it to where you had to poke in. You poked in your numbers on the keypad. It's easy to do. It's easy. That's easy. Y'all might think that's hard, but if anybody at me with no education or anything can do these things, anybody can do them. It just depends on how interesting and how much it interests you, and how you will figure it out on your own. And I was just picking up trash off the side of the road half the time, so it really didn't make a difference if I couldn't get it working, or if I did get it working. If it didn't work and I burnt something out, well, then it was trash anyway, and I wasn't losing any money on it. So through my life, that's how I've learned. I've always gotten free stereos, free TVs, free VCRs. VCRs are my favorite thing to get. People would always throw them away, and all it was something a little in there that needed to be adjusted, or a belt that needed to be replaced, or that needed to be cleaned, or there was tape stuck around one of the rollers, or televisions that didn't have no sound, and I would hook a stereo up to the television and use the sound, the line feed coming out of the back of the TV to go into a stereo to make it play. And that's the way I've always did everything. I've always picked up all these junk off the side of the road and made things out of it. And I've always fixed my own things through the years. I could probably just go down and buy this stuff, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, but it's like that's just the kind of person I am, and that's just me. I want to know what makes it work. I want to know why. I want to try to figure out why it's doing that, how that's doing that, what it's doing. Learn something. Anyway, I'll get off here and I'll let y'all go, but I just wanted to share that with y'all. That's what kind of person I am. And I've always self-taught myself on anything I've ever touched, so I never can really say, I know how to work on your television. Nope, you don't want me working on your television, because I don't want to be responsible for it if I burn it up. But if you want to throw a television out in the road, yeah, I'll go pick it up. 9 times out of 10, I can probably make it work. Anything that anybody throws away, I've always taken apart and try to find out and make it work. Bicycles, lawnmowers. I would find lawnmowers on the side of the road, and I would pull the pistons and stuff out of one lawnmower and go put it in another lawnmower, or pull the magneto off of this lawnmower and go put the magneto on that lawnmower, or the valves will burn up on this one, or just vice versa, man. There's just a lot of options out there that you have when you're picking up stuff off the side of the road. People throw away junk that's something so simple could be wrong with it, and you got something for free. That's the way I've always been. And not to say that I'm a poor guy, because I'm not. I just like tinkering with things. I would spend my money on, sometimes I get frustrated and go spend my money on something nice, and then I wouldn't have enough money to buy something, and then I would end up like this DeWalt radio here, man. I paid $400 for this DeWalt radio, and I made it. I've been hesitant about taking it apart and hooking this stuff up that I hooked up to it, because I don't want to burn it out. But it works. It works fine. Time will have to tell, man. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'll see y'all later, man. Linster out. I'll quit babbling on. Bye-bye.